We wanted to get the worst 2020 films out of the way first so that these 2020 movies can last in our memories longer. Hello guys, welcome to Filmanter, and for today's list, we'd be counting down the absolute best Hindi films that 2020 had to offer. Before we dive straight into the list though, please make sure to subscribe to Filmanter if you haven't already, and press the bell icon to never miss an update. With that out of the way, this is Amir, and here are the 10 best Bollywood movies of 2020. Number 10. Raat Akeli Hai. If 2020 turned out to be redeemable for some people, it was the numerous debutant directors who really came to their own with engaging films that they might have struggled to find any backings for had theaters still be running as the primary mode of exhibition. One such individual being Hanif Rehan, a casting director turned full-time director, bringing us the nail-biting mystery thriller in Raat Akeli Hai, starring Radhika Apte and Nawazuddin freakin' Siddiqui. The film followed a small-town cop who is summoned to investigate the death of a local politician, but only finds things getting more and more complicated by the victim's secretive family and his own conflicting emotions. Now, we do agree that if you take Siddiqui out of the film, a lot of its charm gets diluted away. But can't you say that for pretty much any movie starring the actor? Raat Akeli Hai is a pretty slick suspense that deserves a watch from everyone for its well-knit plot, character motivations, and performances. Watch it. Number 9. AK vs. AK. Perhaps the most awe-inspiring feature that graced our screens last year was the Netflix original Vikramaditya Motwani directed meta movie AK vs. AK, starring Anil Kapoor and Anurag Kashyap. The meta, mockumentary-like structure of the film really struck a chord with the audience, who at various points of its runtime really struggled to tell what elements of the film were real and what were orchestrated. The dark comedy saw Kashyap and Kapoor basically playing fictionalized versions of their own selves, with Motwani taking their once documented past as a reference point and building an entire thriller around it. The performances were splendid, and neither of the AKs held anything back. But what single-handedly elevated AK vs. AK to one of the absolute best of the entire year was its unconventional approach at storytelling that not only blurs the lines between what's real and what's not, but also works as a commentary on modern-day Bollywood like no other film has for a very long time. Number 8. Bulbul. As an actor, Anushka Sharma has successfully managed to become one of the biggest names in entertainment and carve her own niche in the ever-so-dynamic film industry. As a producer, she's turned out to be even better, showing a great deal of trust in offbeat and innovative stories ever since its inception. Clean Slate Films presented perhaps its most tantalizing feature in 2020, Bulbul. The 1.5-hour-long horror followed the life of a child bride in 1881 who grows into an enigmatic woman ruling over her household, hiding her painful past as some supernatural murders plague her village and her own mansion. Now, before we jump into the conclusion about the film being scary or not, let's clarify that horror is used loosely here, blending seamlessly into the patriarchal nature of rural proceedings that Bulbul and other women are not only forced to adhere to, but also born into. Maybe that's the horror element of debutant director Anvita Dutt's film, not a witch haunting the local men, but the local men haunting the women. Number 7. Har Kisse Ke Hisse, Kaamyaab. Each year, there's at least this one film character who takes you through an impeccable emotional journey with him en route to getting showered by praises at various annual award functions and becoming a definitive milestone in the actor's resume. This year, that character happened to be Sudhir Chandola, played earnestly by the criminally underutilized 57-year-old Sanjay Mishra. But don't let that divert your attention from the powerful film that was Kaamyaab. Kaamyaab focused on the careers of the thousands of character actors that we see in hundreds of movies over time, who while do succeed in getting some recognition over time, fail to really get their names etched in the history books of cinema. One such side actor, Sudhir, realizes a little late in his life that he retired just to shy away from working in his 500th film. His heartwarming and heartbreaking quest to procure that achievement is basically the film at a glance. Another meta film in our list, Kaamyaab at heart is a love letter to these performers and a realization of who else except the heroes deserve our applause as an audience. Number 6. Ludo. When Anurag Basu takes the director's seat, you know you're in for anything but a by-the-numbers story. And that's exactly what Ludo stood for. Just like an actual game of Ludo, we see 4 independent stories crossing paths in this dark comedy through a twist of fate brought about by the dice in this situation, aka Sattu Bhaiya, played deliciously by Pankaj Tripathi. boasting of a humongous star cast and their own unique stories, the over-the-top humor, a healthy dose of emotions, pitch-perfect performances, and apt cinematography by Basu himself all come together into making Ludo perhaps the most engaging film of the year that was 2020. While there will be those criticizing the film's over-reliance on exposition to make sense of the action being carried out in the scenes, Ludo is definitely a step in the right direction for an industry that has gradually turned itself into a vacuum of original content. Number 5. Cargo. Speaking of original, in terms of sheer ambition, there's no denying that Cargo sits at the top of the mountain called 2020. Now picture this synopsis. In the year 2027, Rakshas and humans have come to terms on a treaty that has facilitated the Asuras to embrace technology in the form of numerous spaceships used to work as post-death transition services for humans. There's our protagonist Prahasta, who works for one of these spaceships called Pushpak 634A and is responsible for seamlessly recycling dead humans and smoothly transitioning them into their new lives, or Punarjanam. Tapping into Hindu mythology for reference, the science fiction starring Vikrant Massey and Shweta Tripathi is as original and refreshingly innovative as it got not only in 2020, but the entire last decade. The movie that also dealt with the subject of life and death was made on a modest budget of 8 to 10 crores. Again, that's a science fiction. For reference, that's nearly 1/10 of the budget for Jab Harry Met Sejal. Number 4. Loot Case. Kunal Khemu has had a career renaissance of sorts in the last few years, going from almost irrelevancy to being the only redeeming thing about the abysmal multi-starrer Kalank, go watch our video on that, to pulling off one of his most successful years in 2020 with features like the highly entertaining Malang and of course, Loot Case. Rajesh Krishnan's Loot Case was the story of a lower middle class man, Nandan Kumar, who on a fateful night while returning from work comes across a suitcase full of cash and greets it like an old friend who had long forgotten about him. Needless to say, Nandan soon finds himself being chased by different powerful people, and that's what Loot Case is basically about. The writing is hilarious, whether it be Vijay Raz's character obsessed with National Geographic or our own Nandan Kumar's emotional interactions with the suitcase he affectionately names Anand Petikar. All of the punches hit the right note with the audience, leaving a smile on our faces for days to follow, and that's honestly the best any film could have done during 2020. Number 3. Thappad. Director Anubhav Sinha's sudden social reawakening has not only resulted in some of the best work the creator has ever put together in his entire career so far, but also arguably the most thought-provoking films in their respective years back to back. The social discrimination trilogy of sorts that kicked off in 2018 with Mulk starring the late Rishi Kapoor was capped off in 2020 with arguably the best offering in the series so far, Thappad. Thappad followed the dichotomy of Amrita after her seemingly perfect married life is shattered when, on a fateful night, during a heated confrontation, she gets slapped by her husband. The film then goes on to question whether merely a slap is enough to re-examine one's marriage, and refreshingly stays consistent throughout in its tonal and ideological stance. Attempting to voice objection to the deep-rooted patriarchy and the unjust societal norms that come with it in the only non-violent installment in the trilogy, the 2020 somber drama is only lifted up 2 notches by its perfectly befitting casting of Taapsee Pannu in the lead. Number 2. Sir. Ever wondered what a film entirely based on that poem from Gully Boy would look like? Well, you shouldn't look anywhere else because this 2018 Rohena Gera social drama finally found a way to our screens in late 2020. Sir focuses on the development of a relationship between a maid and her upper-class employer. The topic is treated with an utmost sensitivity without diving much into the social class differences that divide its 2 protagonists. And therein lies the power of such a nuanced film like Sir. The movie has its subtle moments of joy and heartbreak, but director Rohena Gera doesn't let it divert from the core story she's tasked herself with telling. The movie is basically about an unlikely bond and how the possible societal scrutiny can affect it long before it can even be established. Spearheaded by the powerhouse of a performer that Tilotoma Shom is, Sir is a must-watch for everyone complaining about lack of good cinema in 2020. And number 1, Ibala. Can there ever be a perfect film? Well, Rotten Tomatoes certainly believes it's this social satirical drama directed by Pratik Watts, which premiered at the 2019 Pingyao International Film Festival, was selected for the 70th Berlin International Film Festival, screened at the VR1 Global Film Festival, and won the prestigious Golden Gate Award at the 2019 Mami Film Festival. The film revolves around a young migrant in New Delhi who scores the unusual government job of keeping monkeys away from public buildings and focuses on his ensuing struggles and disillusionment with the work. It's a commentary on how even while working for the government, Anjani Prasad, the official monkey repeller, is basically powerless. He's so marginalized that even the monkeys he's tasked with scaring away hold more authority than him. It's a masterful debut by Watts, commenting on the current state of order in the nation and power hierarchies that haunt the vulnerable. Ibala is in equal parts a dark comedy as it is subtly distressing, and according to us, the best film we saw in the entire year 2020. And there you have it, guys. 10 best Bollywood movies of 2020. Did we miss any of your favorites? Let us know in the comment section down below. Do check out our list of the worst 2020 films too, if that's humanly possible for you, that is. And like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us stay motivated to produce content like this. With that out of the way, have a safe week ahead. My name is Amir, and I will see you soon.